We wanted to see how you would handle.
Oh, I can roll. Lively discussion in 5 seconds.
I had a mouse. Don't need it.
All right, I'd like to call this October 27th, 2025 meeting of the IGA Committee to order. Dr. Hubach, you approved the agenda?
I do.
All right, the agenda is approved. Do you approve the minutes of the 9/22/2025 meeting?
And also approve the minutes.
As do I, so those are approved. We're gonna get right into the policies and regulations requested for review by board members and or staff. I want to start with A, DA, management of funds.
So that was speaking.
This one was from like like months ago, and we just held it.
Okay.
All that really changed on this was legal references. And the only reason we changed the sentence to go at the top instead of at the bottom is because it was like the starting point of the policy. It shouldn't have been at the end.
Yeah.
It was really just legal links on the end.
I had no issues
Yeah,
with
this
that.
one is easy. All right, we'll move that one over. We'll move right to EBB, which is threat assessment teams.
So
Take it. So it's really Mr. Tucker's, but we work closely together. Basically, it's state law saying that notification, communication to parents and certain materials have to be made available during a threat assessment to those students, to different things, but it's based on state law.
Yeah, I can see you quoting the actual code. And that's the only change that we've made. Instead of just, we changed school division, personnel to staff.
we're doing that in all policies.
So,
I had no issues with that.
okay.
Oh, so the next policy
Hang on,
is,
just hang on.
oh, sorry.
I'm
I thought it
sorry.
was done. Sorry.
All right, we're good. I can go, sorry. All right, C, IKEB, acceleration.
Yes, so this is based on new state law specific to math acceleration. So Dr. Trosper and Audrey Bowyer worked on this. Basically, the criteria for being enrolled in advanced or accelerated math in the middle school, and the notification to parents that this is the criteria and this is why your child was enrolled in accelerated math. We sometimes have parents who don't want their child to be in an accelerated math program. The way the state law reads is that they're automatically registered for that math program if they meet the criteria, and parents have to request for them to be pulled out if they don't want them in that. And then we have to submit our data to the DOE each year to let them know how many of our students qualified based on the new criteria. So this is all coming down through state law.
Is the new criteria established?
We're gonna start it next year.
So it's changing with the, I guess they escalated and raised the bar on.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
Okay.
We debated whether to start it this year or next year, but seeing we still don't even have all of the accountability information we were supposed to be given in August, and now they're saying it'll probably be the holidays before we get it. I'm not sure which holidays, might be Easter break, but so we decided we weren't gonna try to implement this year until we knew exactly what it meant for our kids, so we will start using that criteria in the following year.
Okay.
So this is all state law.
It's all state.
State law. All right, I think we're good. 3 for 3.
Yep.
3 for C. D, JC school attendance areas, and D/1 JC school attendance areas.
Right, I mean, how are we doing this?
Well, are you taking public comment?
Yes, I will take public comment.
If you want to do that first.
We have someone for public comment. We have Mr. Stephen Hill.
I'm gonna read this so I don't mess this up. So as we continue our discussion of school capacity and future planning, I'd like to focus on a policy option, the overflow model, and how it can serve Bedford County as a practical tool for managing enrollment growth. Our current policy, JC, school attendance areas, gives the school board authority under section 22.1-7.178 and 79 of the Code of Virginia to define and adjust attendance zones based on the recommendations of the superintendent. Policy JCR, which operationalizes that authority, outlines a series of strategy for addressing overcrowding when school reaches its established capacity threshold. Those include boundary adjustments, grade level reconfigurations, temporary facilities, and if accepted, the implementation of an overflow model. The overflow model will provide an alternative to a traditional rezoning strategy by directing newly enrolled students, particularly from new residential developments, to nearby schools with available capacity once the zoned school has reached or exceeded its capacity threshold. It allows current students to remain in their existing schools, preserves the stability for families while enabling the division to balance enrollment responsibly across facilities. This model is also consistent with our goals to ensure equitable access, efficient use of our resources, and to maintain the integrity of our instructional program. I've put down 4 key features of the program or of the model. Predictability. Once a school reaches its capacity limit, a newly planned development are assigned a designated overflow school unit until capacity drops below the threshold. The stability aspect, the students that are already enrolled are not displaced and siblings are all kept together. Transportation equity, the transportation is provided under the same conditions as regular assignments. Annual review, assignments are revised annually to determine whether or not students can return to their zone schools. This policy addition would allow us to standardize enrollment models without having to hold public hearings every time a new development is planned with an intended zone boundary. And transparency, the division will publish an updated list to review each year to ensure accountability. In areas like the forest zone, growth continues to outpace available space. Rather than moving hundreds of students through large-scale boundary changes, an overflow model will give us the flexibility to respond incrementally, fairly, and without uprooting established community. It also aligns with our values of being good stewards of taxpayer resources while protecting instructional quality for every student, regardless of zip code. I want to make this very clear. This overflow model does not replace redistricting. It just refines it. It gives us a structured, data-driven process to maintain enrollment in real time while maintaining community trust and student stability.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for the time that it's taken to put that together and to come up with another option that we could potentially consider. So I guess with that, we will look at this, and I'll just read what the changes are, because we already have, this JC is already in the books. This is just, would be in addition to that, is that correct?
Well, yes, we added an addition to JC and then we added a regulation. We don't have a regulation. So just to give you a little bit of the history, right after the board meeting, Dr. Calvert began working on a possible policy that could kind of guide our thinking if we were to use an overflow model. And then over the last 3 weeks, we've all been tweaking it. And what we realized is if we made just a policy for the overflow model, then that's saying that that's what we're going to do every time a school's at capacity. So what we did was we just went back in and took JC, which we already have, and added this paragraph that the superintendent will present or create a regulation with lots of options So the new regulation that you have are all of the options that we could think of. We did some research and basically how they would be implemented, which includes the overflow policy. Dr. Calvert actually even went in and put, definitions so that it was very clear what is an overflow school, what is a new development, how do we define those things. So that's how we kind of came to giving the board options if there are capacity issues that include everything we could think of, which would be redistricting, adding on permanent building structures, adding on temporary structures like mobile. So we tried to give you everything that we could in the regulation as possible options. The nice thing about a regulation is it doesn't have to come to the board for approval. So let's say we were in the middle of something and someone had another idea. Superintendent could put that in regulation as an option for the board to consider without having to go through the 2-month policy cycle. So that's where we're at, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Dr. Calvert, anything? that you'd
No,
like to
I
add?
just think all the possibilities of anything that we would do are, anything that we've thought of are in here. So, and you can do one or more or combination, so.
Again, I advocate for this in business and a lot. I don't like when you get to the line of scrimmage and you can only call one play. I like having the ability to have options. I think Chairman Hill has sat up here and has advocated for options 20 times. We want options, and I appreciate everybody working together to come up with this. It's just another tool I think that, we now have access to. So with that, Dr. Kubach, anything on this regulation? Or on these?
Only that I too like a lot of options, and I like the flexibility that it gives, and that it enables us to work overflow model with redistricting. And I agree, it shouldn't replace.
Right.
That they should work in concert.
I think sometimes redistricting can be, for certain areas, that's a pretty aggressive step that may not be needed, Sometimes you need to thread the needle a little bit, you need to be very smart, and you don't need to have all this upheaval, and if you only have that other tool, that's the only tool you have, you're gonna cause, some issues for sure.
And there are certainly some areas in the current redistricting topic that we've been talking about that still need that. And it makes sense to the community, it makes sense to the school board, and I don't think we should veer from that in those areas, particularly Lake Vista and some of those other areas that are actually bifurcated by the current zoning. I did have a question though, that either one of you could answer, and that is, we kind of have this nebulous capacity threshold, and we talked about, 85's too low, that's not fund efficient, and 99 is too high,
Yeah.
right? That's pushing the margin on that way. What kind of threshold are we talking about?
We debated that for a long time in the executive team, going back and forth on, we had it in at one point, we took it out. We had it in, we took it out, we went back and forth.
Well, the
We
fact that it's a
decided-
regulation, we don't have to nail it down.
We decided not to nail it down because I just thought doing any specific number in here is just so,
It's also dependent on the school too, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
I think probably more of a realization for me. So, just doing a lot of research over redistricting and all of that and talking to the team, I think we recognize that redistricting and growth need to be treated like we treat our CIP as a long-range plan. And that really, us coming up with a redistricting plan, we are not experts in development. We are not experts in transportation. We're not experts in all of the things it takes to do that. So in talking with Randy, we would really like for the facilities committee to really start looking at what subdivisions are coming, And we just so happen that we have a board member who has great knowledge of how those building permits work and how, subdivisions are created. And we also have Taylor Bell, who works on our construction projects here. And I was getting notifications of meetings on new developments. Well, I'm instruction, so we need to get the right people in the right place before we make these big decisions. So I think what we talked about was really taking some time to look at 5, 6, 7 years down the road, because I think Mr. Hill said it in the last board meeting, it would be really foolish for us to move 100 kids and then New London to drop down to 60% capacity and stay there for several years because the developments aren't even started yet. So I just feel like we have been thinking a lot about getting the right people at the table. And if it goes through a committee, then during those committee reports, that committee can present to the board all of that information that they understand and that they're experts in. So that's kind of where my thoughts have been. I think we were doing what the board asked, but honestly, listening to the parents, I was feeling like, oh gosh, we don't live in those neighborhoods. We don't see those things. We're trying to do the best we can with the knowledge we have. So that's just my opinion and kind of why we're going this direction. Give lots of options, but as you said, we didn't choose a capacity because it depends on what school you're at. If it's an older school, they have less capacity. They don't have as much storage. They don't have all those things.
Cafeterias, all those things matter, so putting a hard line number on it, I think is gonna harm us more than.
And I think by looking at each individual situation, it's not just a number on a piece of paper. It's actually going through and having firsthand knowledge and saying, anybody could walk in and see that and go, oh, we totally get it. And I think that's a better way to do it, so.
And I think there's good conversation that can be had with lots of information, because the other piece of information that right now I'm really the only person that has access to it other than the person who built the spreadsheet is how many zone transfers do we have in each of our schools? Because we have some families that have been grandfathered in for years that would have been staying in schools while people who live in that community are being moved. That's a hard pill to swallow. And we haven't addressed that yet. Like, what do those kids get to stay just because they have an approved zone transfer, or it's stuff to talk about, I think.
And the flexibility that this provides, and the fact that we can revoke those zone transfers if they're creating a problem.
Yes, and that's in our zone transfer policy. We can
Correct.
revoke at any time for capacity or other issues.
And specifically in redistricting.
And from a long-term perspective, in talking with Dr. Whitford, looking at, just because there's a permit doesn't mean there's construction. So from permit to actual kids showing up in our school, looking at historical data, what kind of structures are going up, what is the impact of our schools? We can go back and look at when apartments or townhouses or houses went in, how many are gonna come in, actually looking at some hard data from the past. But when do we, when's the timeline for those kids to show up? Because, is it when they've cleared the land, that doesn't mean they're gonna start construction. So there's a lot to that. We have some people on the board and actually in our departments that have a little bit more knowledge on that. But to come up with some methodology, so we're looking 5 years out at all times in the facility, not just the CIP, but the facilities as far as capacity. And the methodology for coming up with that capacity, very transparent. This is how we've done it. This is when we can expect the kids, and that's gonna trigger one of these options. So everybody knows when that's gonna happen.
So does this mean that, like if I'm going to buy a house in this new community and the flyers are coming out and my real estate broker's like, hey, come check out this piece of land and they're gonna build acre homes. It's gonna come in and usually says elementary school, middle school, high school. For this instance, let's say elementary school was the one in question. It would just either have a question mark or a TBD, something like that, until at that time, it's like, once houses start going up or whatever, that comes in and it's known then. Okay.
Or if we're far enough in advance and it's like they're putting one in and we know a certain school right where it's close to is gonna be over capacity, we're gonna say to be determined, but not the one that's over capacity.
I
I mean,
guess
that
we
way
would just
people buying those
communicate.
houses are coming in with a clear understanding of what's happening. That has put pressure on a certain school, and you wanna be as transparent as possible for our current parents that have kids in our school, but people buying too. So they don't come in and go, just because I'm close to that school doesn't mean that's where you're going, if you were to select the overflow policy. There's other options here too, so. Yeah.
Well, and I think that we're gonna be very intentional, and a lot of it is just misunderstanding and miscommunication between the county administration and us. Tomorrow, there is a planning meeting for a new development, and they're probably gonna have way too many Bedford County people on it, but we want people on that call that understand what they're talking about, so that we can then say, now, we just want you to know that, let's say it's, at New London, we're not gonna promise that New London Academy is gonna be the elementary school, so we just kind of put that out there to the developer right up front.
Yeah, on top of that, there's some other things that the developers might need to know, or there's something like between the county and us and saying, hey, this is what's going on, and by the way, this other stuff is needed. Maybe the developers can help out with some of that stuff, maybe it's easy. So I think more communication, of course, is gonna be better, because it does help avoid things being miscommunicated or just someone just not knowing.
Right.
I think that having the regulation the way that you guys have done it allows us to try to have a maximum solution with minimal impact. I think it gives you that scalpel that you need when you're trying to. It's delicate, but it's lives, and we want to be respectful and cognizant of that. One question I will ask Mr. Hagler is on transportation. It would most likely, let's say it's a new subdivision next to an old subdivision. This is going to a different school than that is, but to make sure that the kids are getting on the right bus, separate bus stops, I would assume. What do you think? I know you guys have to walk through that.
Of course, they do that every day at the school, getting them to
Yeah.
their home.
Yeah, I think it would just be.
It's just clear communication with
Just want to
families.
make sure that
And our routing software, we're looking at different
Good.
routing
That's fine.
software that's coming.
And the other
Leading
piece of
question, I'm
this
sorry.
is, I think part of the reason we were trying to define new development, we're not talking about one new home with a family in it. We're talking about the possibility of,
10 new homes.
yes, 30 or 40 kids that are really,
Yeah.
But we also we left it very open.
Open.
So that we choose when it's needed to be chosen. We didn't say 25 homes or 50 homes, or we just kind of defined in the definition of new development, it's on the least end moving up, you know what I mean? And it does say,
Yeah.
site plan, any residential subdivision, site plan rezoning or building permit approval resulting in the creation of one or more new dwelling units that exist as of the adoption date of this regulation. So, in other words, from this regulation date moving forward.
Okay. So that gives us the flexibility. That would just be considered a redistrict if we decided to go back and look at another new development that happened that's causing some capacity issues. We
Yes,
just
because
have to
we
go
didn't
back.
think we could go back and retroact something that,
No, because they would
Yeah.
have to have, we would have to have a meeting, and they would have to be able to come and present. Okay.
the other thing I think this allows, and I'm speaking for a committee that I'm not in charge of, sorry Randy, but you can say, like, we are concerned about this new development, bring us a couple of, what are a couple of things we could do? What does it look like if we redistrict? What does it look like if we do overflow? So I think it gives more to think about. I think before, when we
or
heard,
if we
we
move
always just
preschool
did
programs,
redistrict.
we
Yeah.
move all the preschool programs, we move all the programs out of that school, then
Yeah.
what does it look like?
I appreciate the conversation we've had in the last couple of months because it's been very eye-opening, I think, for all of us. And, I appreciated the public comment last month at the board meeting because there were a lot of things that I think it got us thinking, and appreciate the.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think one of the things I always tell people is it's not just about the problems. Come to us with solutions too, and it's good to hear that people are very invested and they said that. And I think that they will absolutely respect the fact of the hard work that's been done to try to come up with the solution, because that's what we're ultimately looking for. So I guess with that, I am very appreciative of this and this tool, potential, so I do not have any other questions.
And I'll just say from a transportation view, I think it's been addressed. The main thing would be you don't want one bus in one zone going into all over the
Yeah.
other zone. But if it's one targeted location, targeted neighborhood development,
Yeah.
we can make that.
It's also now, if you think about it, I know it's there, and it may be several stops in a new neighborhood, and if they were still on the same bus, it would make for a longer bus route for someone, so. Yeah, the only thing I would say is if we do move this, I think it would be important to maybe discuss some of the regulations there, because obviously we have some decisions to make, and I think that would help maybe people feel a little better about some stuff, so.
So just, you'd like us to be prepared, when it's introduced as a new policy to kind of talk
Yeah,
about?
the other ones, Mr. Dupere usually reads them all. I
Yeah.
think this one, we just wanted to,
He
you know.
needs a summary.
Yeah, it's funny
He needs a
because
summary,
it
not-
does need
not the
something,
actual-
because typically regulations don't come before the board, but I think a good explanation of why it's coming is also good.
And we need to be prepared, that a motion is made, that we take action. So I think it's also important from a transparency standpoint. Obviously, we'll get it out there and people will see this, but give a presentation and then,
And we do sometimes add the regulation onto the board informational items,
Mhm.
even though you're not voting on it, just so people can see.
yeah,
what we're
that
talking
would be my
about.
recommendation,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Agree with that.
All right, that is approved. All right, let's move on to E, that's JCB.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for your hard work and your public comment.
Thank you. JCB, transfers by students in persistently dangerous schools.
This is another, just a legal update and language update to, we are still going through policies that we just needed to change language and to make them consistent. But this is, we don't have any persistently dangerous schools, thank
Mhm.
goodness. So we've never had to do anything, but we do have to have the policy to allow a transfer if there is a persistently dangerous school.
And the legal reference was just outdated, so
Yeah.
it needed to be removed, and we haven't looked at this since it was adopted in 2015.
Okay.
So that's
Good.
just one
Let's
of those.
cross it off
to bring
then.
in.
And this is just within the division, correct?
Correct.
Is there any other, just a side question, is there any, if there's, persistently dangerous schools outside of the divisions, is there anything for those students to be able to get into Bedford County?
So if there are no options in that school division, that school division can reach out to our school division and ask if they could pay the cost or tuition of coming. Now, we probably wouldn't offer it as our $500 tuition. We would probably look at the particular student, their services and needs, and actually say to the school division, this is what it costs per pupil. They need to pay that.
Mhm.
So,
Okay,
yeah, but if they have an option inside their school division, they have to, that's
Which
what they
they
offer, and the
typically
parent can make a choice,
Mhm.
yep.
okay. And if the parent decides, I don't like those options, then they can,
They
if
can
they
pay
wanna.
tuition.
Got it. Good,
That's enough.
nice job. F, drugs in school.
Alright, this is,
Definitely F.
just policy update based strictly on, legal language, Code of Virginia, specifically on notifying parents during school-connected student overdoses. How when and how we would communicate, with those parents. And we've been doing this, so.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
We have other policies that are in code of conduct, student code of conduct and everything else, so like, I just wanna make sure that, from an enforcement standpoint, from a student safety standpoint, and from an overall, like, being tough on this, that we have all the tools that we need and we're using all the tools we have at our disposal.
We do.
Okay.
And we have a matrix that our principals are really utilizing at the secondary level to be consistent with that, working with Mr. Tucker as the hearing officer,
Yep.
and having those kind of hearings for those kind of situations. These changes are more about if a overdose defined by the state of Virginia, which is very specific.
This is a life-threatening condition.
Right.
You probably have a lot of stuff under that threshold that falls under another policy.
Right, so this is, the changes are just more about the communication with parents, that we're required as a division to notify all parents of that school, not just, it's not just the parents of whose students are involved in that incident, so it's about the whole school.
The parents are notified, but it just would say a student or something like that, it's not like, okay.
One of the things I do think is hard about this policy is that law enforcement and medical personnel confirm the overdose. And if they get called out and a student, then they'll say it's an overdose. And
On the EMS.
on the EMS records, which then in turn, it does force us to send that letter. And so that's a little,
So we've
That's-
worked with the sheriff on this because a lot of times, we haven't had very many of these situations, and really this is over the last, two years, maybe?
2.5 maybe.
Because sometimes you'll get, well, EMS is saying yes, and law enforcement saying no. Well, this says both, right? So you have to, it's delicate to work through, but actually the new draft just came out, this summer, and it really helps us with the definition of student overdose where, you're administering Narcan. So, I think that's
We
gonna,
have that in all our schools.
that's gonna help.
And our teachers and staff, everyone knows the policy and procedures on how to handle that.
We have teams, or
Yeah, we have
You
teams
have
that are
an
trying, not
emergency
every,
response team, right?
yeah, not every team,
and the
has access to
nurses
Narcan.
are the ones who are.
SROs carry Narcan also, so.
And I don't know all the ins and outs, so correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but like if we have to look through some, I know this is separate than this and we'll move this one through, of course, but if we're good now, suspecting of something, and I know we've gone, I mean, who would go through like a student's like book bag if we suspected something that's not an overdose, it's just, we suspect them,
We
they
have
wear
that.
gloves and everything and all that
We
stuff?
have that clearly outlined in our code of conduct,
Alright.
and administrators would be the ones to do that, unless it's unless it's a safety issue for our administrators, then an SRO would come with them into that room, but.
You have to basically say, I'm in danger of my life right now.
Because
It's
there's a different level of standard for a search for an officer versus a search that an
Yeah.
administrator can do.
It's only if it's a severe safety issue.
I'm just thinking like if it was like fentanyl or something, I know they say like that stuff, if it can get on you, it can affect it or
We
whatever.
utilize gloves and all
Okay.
that stuff.
Sure.
They're
We'll see.
also nasty.
Well, and a diabetic crisis can look like a fentanyl overdose, right? And
I understand what you're saying, yes.
They don't sometimes regularly clean their book bags. You always want
I don't
red
have a
gloves.
problem with this, but I do think that there certainly could be situations where there's a difference of opinion between, EMS, where they're gonna say, oh, this is a drug overdose, because they're impaired, but not necessarily a life-threatening situation that VDOA says is an overdose, so. Okay. You're always gonna have that. EMS is gonna wanna overdiagnose, and the sheriff is gonna wanna underdiagnose, so.
And we have a lot of
We will.
volunteers.
We've gotten through the last few relatively smoothly. Once that first one happened, and that we just, it's really communication with everybody. And Janet Blankenship's awesome at EMS to work with, and the sheriff's department, our sergeants have been our, SRO sergeants have been our main contacts, and we've all been able to talk through those situations and get through it with, the principal and Ms. Eanes helping with the communication too, so drafting letters. But we have a template now, from the DOE, and Mr. Tucker and I and Ms. Eanes, and Ms. Thomas are all involved when something like that would happen.
All right, that's good. G, JFCG, cell phones and personal communication devices.
So this is no change to the front half of this policy. We're just making the employee portion of this match the employee policy because we made a separate employee
Right.
policy and we wanted them to match word for word.
Right.
So remember we use VSBA on the employee one, so we're just making this match.
Got it. Okay, check. There you go.
SBA, I said VSBA.
Get it. H, JO, student records.
We just brought this one
Yeah.
like last time, but we got an email, Mr. DePere did, from the Home Educators Association of Virginia.
Again?
Questioning the language that we used in the policy, which I made the policy, it's been that way since 2010, but they just called that. So, just to keep the peace, we took out the language we had, added exactly what's in the law, so that we're covered, and they should.
Have they been able to proof this yet?
No,
They will at the same time. the
might be
board
back at IGA
I know
next
they
time.
will. Okay. Yeah.
The part that's highlighted in yellow is the only thing that changed, and it's under the home instruction part. And we just took out what we had in there because they said that we legally couldn't ask for those things.
Right.
And then put exactly what we have in the home instruction policy that comes straight from the state law into this, to cover everything she said in her email,
Sounds like you hit the nail on the head.
hopefully.
She honestly, I think she thought we didn't do any changes from her last email, but we had. This was kind
It's
of
a
new.
different policy.
So,
It
yeah.
was the home instruction policy.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, she's splitting hairs.
That's okay, I mean,
That's right.
yeah, Will.
She's doing her job and
representing the parents of
That
the
is
home
a-
instruction, so.
It's a big policy.
It is. Records are
That's my fault.
complicated.
Huh?
The original policy was supposed to be like, it was like a couple pages, but then I added all this stuff into it, and now everybody keeps scrutinizing all the stuff I put in. I should have just left it alone.
all right. I appreciate your endurance with this policy.
Very good. I think we're good. Move it. KI, public solicitations in the schools.
There's nobody here for this one. It actually is a policy that is for Miss Eanes across the street, and Mr. DePere approved it. Really, nothing is really changing. It's just another one that we haven't reviewed for a long time. And she said that nothing needed to be changed from it. We just took out the purpose statement, changed some words that we've changed in other policies. I actually do not know when the last time we revised it is, because when I got policies, I go in and try to find that information. There's not one date on it at all, ever, so I have no idea when we made it, or when
Maybe
the last time.
December 2025.
I don't think so,
Rubber on the road, is this ever an issue?
yes.
That we just say, no, we have a policy that prohibits you from soliciting here.
Well, and we've kind of even gone as strict, like, we used to have employees who would make things, sell them within the schools for their own personal, so we even had to tighten up on that.
I know
Yeah.
some schools have like vendor fairs now, but it's a fundraiser for
Yeah.
Yeah.
the school, and they do it internally too, I think. Or at least I think I remember some schools doing that.
We used to do it at the middle school, but yeah.
We used to have kids used to come in and they would sell like, you can't even do this anymore, like Twix and Snickers for like ROTC. And then I had a buddy who just went to like Sam's Club and bought like a bunch of stuff and he just carried a bag and he was selling it too.
Oh,
Making lots of money.
But I
Pretty
remember
smart.
having conversations with staff where
Boosters.
the staff member would send an email saying I have a car for sale or something, I've had to address
Kitchen
those.
table.
Here's the policy, yeah, those kind
So tell
Take
them,
it-
do
take
you
it
have
to
Facebook
Facebook
Marketplace?
of. Well, this was
Prior.
prior to all
Yeah,
that, so
yeah.
that's dating.
These are the good old days.
Yeah.
That's how we
I
are.
mean, as long as it doesn't prevent, our schools from benefit, like you said, if it was for a fundraiser
Oh,
or something
yeah.
like that, like, hey,
Yeah.
because our
Yeah.
company will go in to the schools, usually we'll partner with the schools and go, hey, we're gonna give free sub cards to your team, and it's like a donation, and we're gonna raise the money for Liberty High School, whatever. And so we're gonna give out 10,000 of these in the community anyway, and try to raise as much money for the school for the grand opening. So that's usually what we would do, so as long as we can do, people can do that, and we can help raise money for the schools, and someone's not personally, gaining on
We
that.
even have, I mean, Randy deals with vendors for 403Bs and things like that. Even those things are now optional for teachers. Like, if you want to visit them and talk about supplemental insurance or 403Bs, you can do that. Before that, they would all line up and come to faculty meetings and you were kind of stuck there listening to their spiel, but
Mhm.
we've even tightened up on that, so.
Okay, I think we passed that, I think we got through it all. Any other topics for discussion? No? Good?
No.
We're good, anybody else? Good. Next committee meeting date? Skip the December meeting. Need to do one. Do we need to do one in November? How are we looking? We still have ones to do.
Still have a backlog?
It's not huge.
It's not huge.
No.
But we're gonna be off in December probably. We're gonna skip the December one, I think, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I can,
Do the 24th.
just check real quick.
I'm not leaving town till 26th, I think.
I can do the 24th.
I already got it on my calendar at 3:00.
We put it in as
We put it on there, but they didn't actually approve them. We're just approving them at each meeting.
Oh, you wanna approve more than that, huh?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I'm definitely out of town on the January one. But we only need one. Everything else looks fine, all the way through May, but we're gonna have a new board. And so I don't know if we know who's gonna be on which
Switch
committee.
around.
Yeah, so maybe we should just, we'd have to
Just
wait
put-
till right after the January meeting, we'd have to set it. Or right after we adjourn that meeting and just come up with an IGA, 'cause that should be set by then.
Okay.
So I think we should do the November 24th one and go from there.
Okay.
That makes sense. Cool. All right, and with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that. We are adjourned.